Howdy, and welcome back to You've Got People Problems, the podcast where we tackle the leadership challenges that no one wants to talk about, but every business faces. I'm your host, Mel Ortiz with Activate Human Capital Group. Today's conversation is with Amy Perenon, and our focus is on how AI is changing the way we work and what it means for people, roles, and organizations as they grow. In this conversation, we dive deep into how AI is reshaping roles and responsibilities, especially in remote work, why companies and individuals can outgrow certain positions as technology evolves, and how leaders can think differently about talent, about work design, and about adaptability. So let's get to it. Howdy, y'all, and welcome to You've Got People Problems. I'm so excited today to be joined by Amy Perenon. No, I was going to screw that up if I didn't slow down. I'm so happy to have you here, Amy. When I think about your role as global people partner at Fastly and think about org design and talent development, this is going to be a really interesting conversation because we started our first conversation was really around what's the world going to look like when we start to insert in small ways and potentially big ways AI into the org chart. And so I think we're going to explore a whole range of what that might look like, pros and cons together. But first, I'd love to pause and give you a chance to tell us a little bit about Fastly and your role. What should we know?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Melissa. I'm super excited to have this conversation. I know that there's lots of different perspectives on the topic, so I think it's great that we're talking about it. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. But so, as we mentioned, I work at Fastly. Marketing hates that I say this, but I always call us Air for the Internet. But we're not just a CDN, it's like an advanced cloud platform built for modern software development. And we deliver your content anywhere at any time. So we have a cache service, all of those things that secure your websites or your streaming platform or anything like that across the world. So that's why we're Air for the Internet. But here, I support actually the teams that build our products. So I support our product engineering, and I support the CTO of the company, who is one of our co-founders. And so I
Great.
talk about engineering all day long in the context of org design, org optimization, and things like that.
Awesome. Well, if you are here because you know Amy and you don't know me, my name is Melissa Ortiz, and I am obsessed with what makes people tick. How do we get them the right butts in the right seats so that they can thrive, their organizations can thrive, and whoever their internal and external customers are, get the best of them. And so I love this conversation. One of the things I've been seeing, Amy, is that especially our younger generation in the workforce, they don't aspire to become people managers. But
Right.
the best thing, one of the most important things that makes our economy run are people managers. They do the training, the cheerleading, the encouragement, problem solving. And if that's not a desire among people, you certainly can't force it because that's miserable. And managers who hate their lives also have employees who hate their lives because engagement flows downhill, whether it's high or low. You are statistically massively unlikely to be engaged as an employee if your manager is not engaged. And so in all my employee engagement work, this is a really interesting topic where this aspiration that used to be like you climb the food chain, become a supervisor, then a manager, then a director, whatever, that's really starting to peter out and the desire isn't there. So that's the reason I was so jazzed to have this conversation
Mhm.
because maybe there will be alternatives and maybe we should be thinking about alternatives. I also think one of the things at play here is that we have too many, quote, working supervisors, where you have a
Mhm.
full-time job, Amy. And oh, BTW, I want you to manage these 12 other people and their performance and give them feedback, but you don't have time for that. So what you end up doing is your full-time job and then sort of half-assing it with your people who report to you. So they see they don't have the best experience with a supervisor or manager. You don't have the best experience managing others. And we've kind of muddled it to the point where you're a player coach instead of a player or a coach.
Right.
So I'm
Totally.
curious if you see that in
Yeah.
organizations you've worked in. Maybe we should start there at the baseline of maybe
Yeah.
some of the root challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, I definitely have seen it in not just Fastly, but I worked at a company called Workday too. And becoming a leader is a high expectation, right? Your job is you're shaping future leaders. You are tied to their success, essentially. Like your success is their success, and you have to be clear. And we find that managers have a hard time being explicit and precise on what they expect individuals to be doing and then how they manage that, right? So that's also where you get into, you've got people problems where you, if they haven't been coached or given feedback, that's where you kind of hit kind of a friction point too. But at my previous employer, Workday, they really focused on investment of the people leader, and we really focused our talent philosophy around that. And we had engagement models around how to enable a manager going from a technical track into a people manager and do some new manager assimilation, and offered online coaching, etc. through that process. Here at Fastly, I'm seeing the same dimension, very smaller scale though. And here we actually have an interesting dichotomy, I guess you could say, with our engineering leaders here, right? They're expected to be people managers, but also technical leads on initiatives. So not only do I have to manage my people and give them clear, precise feedback, but then I'm also leading a strategic initiative across a cross-functional team. So it makes it even harder for my day to day. So we see workload and burnout happening a little bit in pockets in some of our teams today. And we're focused on a new leader launch, which is what one of our programs we launched this year. We'll be putting together career pathing and manager training online, delivered through our HRIS system here, that will have all managers take on an ongoing basis. And we may have new manager cohorts as well that they can peer learn together, because we find that to be highly effective.
Because what we see in the data is about, when I was at Gallup and we were doing a lot of employee engagement research, about 1 in 6 people have the natural talent to manage.
Yeah.
The rest of us need a roadmap. But in our economy, a lot of people are put into these supervisor and manager roles and not given the tools, the training, the encouragement, the roadmap to be effective. And then everybody's surprised when they fail, but
Yeah.
we shouldn't be, because we didn't give them those tools. And so I'm thrilled to hear that's part of your world, because it's such an asset for the people who report into them, for their own sense of confidence and competence. So let's start down this path, because I'm super jazzed to get into this. Um, I think one of the things that you said was, we have to deliver clarity, we have to deliver feedback. But what I see, because I do a lot of behavioral profiles, whether you use StrengthsFinder, Predictive Index, DISC, Myers-Briggs, I don't care about which one you use, but we all have natural different styles. So sometimes I think with my venturer profile that I have given clarity and I have given feedback about, guess what? The person on the other end with a totally different profile may not have gotten what they needed out of that interaction. So I checked the box as a manager. The other person is left going, not clear, not sure, don't know how to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the first places my brain went with AI as a manager is infinite patience to give clarity of directions, to be queried for, what do you mean by that? What does a win look like? And diving deeper into that feedback. So that was one of the first places I was like, this could be an interesting thing, having employees who don't want to be supervisors, having a very patient AI component that doesn't get irritated with our many questions.
Yep.
I don't know, where does your brain go when you think about the first foray into supporting employees, maybe in a way that managers used to, that AI could step in?
Yeah. Yes, it would be interesting. Like, I think, like, my brain's going in multiple directions. Like, you could have, if you would, like a peer, like a bot, your twin, essentially, right?
Okay.
Agenic isn't there yet, but there are twins that are coming out, but we're getting there. That you could work with to coach yourself, right? Like, oh, this is what I want to say. How could I communicate this better? But then there is an element of the co-piloting. So you have this co-pilot that's supporting in a team of individuals that is kind of translating, is this what you mean, boss, by that? And this is what we could do. So like, you could have that kind of agent bot programmed to assist with clarity when you're talking about initiatives and when you're talking about what resourcing to help identify dependencies. So you can have like what I would call like a productivity or an efficiency bot within your org that is helping across the organization. Or you could go real crazy and you're having an actual bot that's assuming a role of an engineering and it's of an engineer and it's allocated as a full resource for that particular situation, but you have to have like a agent supervisor above it. And as a leader, we have to know how to interact with the technology. Like that's not technology that's naturally coming to us. So we have to be trained on how to interface with those types of bots so that we can manage and basically code it so we have safe gaps. Like don't deploy code without X. Don't do this without X. Or approval chain on a Slack message, so you'd have to do some kind of prompting interfacing. I know I kind of give you 3 dimensions of how it could grow in an org chart, but
so let's take your world for instance. So you have a team that is not among the most excited about AI
sure.
and
Yes.
doesn't have a huge appetite
Yep.
to bring it in, which I think is probably a healthy skepticism, which engineers
Mhm.
are known for their skepticism.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is why they help solve problems without just assuming, oh, it's all going to be beautiful and wonderful. What do you think technical people like engineers would be most willing to accept in
Mm.
their space? I mean, one of the things I find so often is managers are time poor. They don't have enough time to really sit and devote one-on-one time to their teams to understand their aspirations and their frustrations, what's working, what's not. I don't know, where do you see we could make some small forays into supporting them better?
Yeah. I think it's that coaching element. A lot of companies are now coming out with, I don't want to advertise for anyone that but like there's little coach elements that are coming out that you can have a bot, an agent, if you will, that you communicate one to one on. I need to have this conversation with an employee. Let's go through some scenarios because not everybody naturally is great at having like what I call a crucial conversation is when you're either having a career conversation or some type of conversation where there's friction in the performance and you need to give that feedback. And then
Yep.
there's just generally folks that may not have had a lot of interpersonal training and so they want to practice it as well. So I think a great introduction is leveraging an agent like that, which would be like a coaching bot that could
Hmm.
help you interface with that communication and help you reframe a question or here are some anticipated responses that you would see and then kind of help you prompt through that. So you role play, if you will, with a bot
Yeah,
before you talk to an employee. So I
for
think
sure.
that's how managers, and that's a safe space for engineering managers to probably intersect on it. We do have in, we did kind of allude to it. I do think that there's more skepticism in some of my engineering teams. I'm just getting acquainted with them, but in my engineering teams to use AI. But we do have an internal chat on Slack where we're talking about it. And we are finding that engineers are using it to help do the upfront framing of maybe some code that you're approaching or helping you figure out a different way to replicate some coding or something like that. And they're way more technical, so they're probably going to say that's not exactly what I said, but it does look like they're solutioning on their own and experimenting. So giving engineers space to play with the technology to see how it works. And we're finding some of the technologies out there are better for coding. And there is a better interaction. But of course, every engineer is like, I'm going to check it. Like, okay, I'll did that, but I'm going to check
Trust but
it.
verify.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are finding that there's like the setup or the pre-work that you would do to go about what you're supposed to build. There is some intervention that's speeding up the process. So in an engineering space, that's what's happening. But I can say for my particular space, so me coming into an organization and me as an as an HR practitioner or trying to understand things, I'm using it to analyze large sets of data. I would love to get some type of insight running on my HRIS system that's telling me insights before I even have to go to the dashboard. Like that's where I want to see, like, here's your quarterly changes, here's your org composition, here's all the things that happened within the quarter in your organization, and here's some insights. Then I have something to work from that I can then go, hey, leader, we saw that we've lost this type of profile from an attrition perspective. Or, hey, leader, we saw this hiring profile being very consistent in all the roles that we had. Obviously, I checked that before I went to the business and had the conversation, but that's how I'm
Sure.
using AI on a
To
regular.
help you go sniff in the right places
Exactly.
more efficiently.
Yeah.
Interesting. I want to go back to the coaching discussion because one of the things I can see is if I go back to these behavioral profiles, like I love to use AI to say, what am I missing? Here's my
Mm-hmm.
natural thought pattern. What am I missing here?
Yep.
And if you went in and said, I've got someone I'm managing as someone who's a specialist, how
Mm-hmm.
are they going to react to this kind of conversation versus I'm managing a maverick? Very different profiles in the way they approach their world and approach leveling up in their
Right.
world from a maturity perspective, from a sophistication, from just the physical work that they're doing. I'd love to be able to weave in the components of that assessment if it already had it all categorized. Okay, I'm working with this person. How do I support them? How do I encourage them
Yeah.
to help me be more efficient in communicating? And I see clients of mine doing that already.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm prepping for this conversation with this type of person. And here's who I am. Where am I likely to step in it? And it will give them some really good suggestions.
Yeah.
So I think that's an easy win because the thing I think so many people love about AI is I'm not bothering anyone else. Like, yes, I have an HR business partner,
Sure.
but she's got a lot on her plate, or
Mm-hmm.
he does. And I think I can answer this myself. And also, there's less insecurity sometimes. Maybe I'm not supposed to be asking this question, or maybe I'm already supposed to know this. And so it can help us prepare and be a thought partner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really beneficial.
Yeah, I love that. And I think some of the tools that are coming out, they're like virtual coaches, right? So they have some baseline foundation probably from some of the you know, tools that are out there that individuals use that you can use that framing. There's also the openness of, I wouldn't mind if my manager used me as a use case, like, having the open conversation with your team that says, hey, I am going to be using a bot. I'm going to disclose things about you within our firewall, within our license that we have within
Yeah.
our protected proprietary license within our own employer. I do need to give them some information about you, so I'm going to prep that. Like, you can be transparent about it. I don't know how many people want to be, but like that's where we have to go. AI is changing how we do things. And so being open and possibly leveraging it and say it's going to be a pilot that I try out and I'll keep you posted makes it a little bit safer and it's not scary. So I do agree, giving them the dimension of what type of personality, because AI is as good as what you put in it. Like you have to
Yeah.
prompt it in a way that can help you um, get what you need. There is still always some bias in it because but naturally you have your own bias, right? Like it's hard for you to see around that corner a lot too in like
Yeah.
your
And so
real
does
life.
anyone who would be coaching you would
Yeah,
have that bias. Like
correct.
it's innate. And I think it's interesting. That context, whether we give full names or just initials or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
But I often go back to my chat history and go, okay, what was the decision on this? Or what
Hmm.
were the other ideas that I didn't explore or that can be beneficial? So I think that's fair about giving people a heads up that,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing this. I'm trying, and so often that a little bit of vulnerability of I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to support you better. I'm trying to communicate better because I think that's not one of my strengths.
Right.
Give people the willingness to be like, you mean you're working on my behalf? Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because
I
I
love
think
that.
old school, like go to manager training is still valuable, but it's less, we have less budgets for it,
Yep.
especially if any travel's required. We've got to find ways to meet people where they are. And so I like a lot of the learn as you go modules that it's on this topic. Oh, that topic's important to me right now. I need to go and do that.
Right.
And the meet them where they are just in time
Yeah.
training modules can be beneficial. But really,
Yeah.
honestly, none of it hurts. Finding ways to do virtual, but the peer stuff is really valuable because then they know they're not in it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. We had just in time learning that we would deliver here. We do micro learn. We're pivoting to a micro learning modules where we would give it to in more micro moments when we're rolling out like people initiatives and things like that. But the point that you're raising is, oh, I've got to go have this conversation. I haven't done it in a while. Then you have this training. Then you can use the coach, right? Like, oh, let me practice, right? Where, or they call you the people partner or your people advisor or what type of level support you have. And if everyone's doing it at the same time, right, at quarter planning, you may not get the resource you need. So that's where this augmentation of the role playing could come as a valuable, or you have a mentor. I mean, like I know that you've talked about that on your podcast before, but like the importance of mentorships and things like that. So that's really important too, that all these managers have mentors that they could talk about like what they're seeing. But the reality is you really get the experience by doing the thing, right? And it's okay if it's not amazing the first couple of times you do it, but the more and more you do it, the more and more it will become part of your flow as a leader, right? To have these kinds of conversations, to provide that feedback, to be more specific, etc. So,
Okay, I want to shift gears and I want to talk
yeah.
about a really one of the biggest people problems that always comes my way, and that's accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And as a society, we have, in my opinion, I have no valid data on this, but in my observation, we have a lot less courage than we had a generation or two ago to enter into hard conversations, to object to things, to hold people accountable, where we've gone too far in a lot of ways being nice
Mm-hmm.
and not we often, because we weren't clear enough in the first place, so then we give them a pass, or we maybe they didn't have the resources they need, so they get a pass, and we're giving more passes
Mm-hmm.
and not holding people to a standard, partially because we haven't done a good job defining what does a win look like,
Yeah.
especially as the organizations get smaller. um, Play with me a little about using AI to help us hold people accountable, because
Mm.
AI is more neutral in terms of the emotional component that I think we
Yeah.
all get. It's like, oh, but their child was sick last month. And so
Yeah.
do they get a pass? Do they not? There's some sticky space there, but if the demands of the role aren't being met, I often find organizations where we've kept people who weren't meeting the bar because they're really nice guys.
Yeah.
But that's not actually serving their best interest because they're not getting promoted at the rate they might elsewhere in a different role. And so much, so much of my work is right people, right seats. If they're in the wrong seat, we're not doing them a service. They know they're sucking at work and they feel shame about it. Very few people feel great about doing a poor job, near zero people. They don't want to suck at work. They want to thrive. They want to contribute. Um, what could it look like? Dream with me a little bit about how we could use this as an accountability partner, and where in the process might we insert it?
Yeah. Oof. I love this question, but I like don't know the answer. So like nobody get mad at me right now because this is real ideation. But it would normalize, right? Like to some degree, right? It's your bot or whatever you're using, some type of technology would analyze some type of information and would say this person's performing at a different degree than this person, or this person did these types of things which are different than this, and that's saying this person is performing better. And then that's when the manager's judgment comes in, right? Um so it would kind of, I don't know, like standardize, is that even a word like that we would
Absolutely.
use in this? I mean, does it standardize it? Makes it a little bit consistent? Does it decrease manager bias? Maybe. I mean, it's all goes back to like, as long as they're not the one making the decision and you're the manager still making the decision, right? Like that,
Yeah.
it just helps you with a perspective that you might not have seen, right? Like it unlocks some of the information that maybe you wouldn't have seen because this person's so nice and they're do this thing, but maybe they haven't delivered on X, Y, and Z projects for 3 months. And that's definitely impacting your bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah, I see two main people problems. There
Yeah.
are the productive jerks who get a lot of work done, but at what cost
Right.
to the organization? They're creating problems with internal customers. They're difficult to work with. That's hard to measure. Also, I the other B player I call a cute puppy, where we like them a lot. They're a great culture fit. They're really pleasant to have around, but for whatever reason, their performance just isn't quite meeting the
Right.
bar. And
Yeah.
so there's two real areas where I think accountability comes into play that managers have a really hard time
Hmm.
addressing. And I think it's easier probably with our, if I use our continue with the cute puppies, it's easier to encourage their development because they're willing, they're interested. They may
Right.
just be in the wrong role or they need more training or whatever. They're easier to invest in. But it's the productive jerks who are really hard to approach and manage because the last thing anybody wants is to lose their productivity
Right.
because it's hard to quantify the cost of that productivity.
Mm.
And so I'm trying to dream about how that might, like,
Yeah.
I love the idea of rating them against in the entrepreneurial operating system,
Mhm.
EOS. One of the things they do is the people analyzer. And
Yeah.
so they hold these productive jerks up against, okay, well, here are our core values. You are not upholding this one. You're always in violation of this one. And you're pretty consistently upholding this one if we have three core values. How are we going to get from here to there? Because this is a non negotiable, just like performance is.
Right.
And that can be a good way to hold up a mirror and be like, I'm cheering for your success, but it's yours to lose.
Right.
I think that's one thing we don't do a good enough job, maybe as managers, is empowering people that decide, do I want to level up, either behaviorally or performance wise? And if I don't, there are consequences. I don't think there are enough consequences. And
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
I'm looking at AI to solve a problem that's a people problem at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
I mean, it would kind of like standardize that a little bit. Like, again, I wonder how it would pick up on the how. Like we call that the how here, right? You can it's the how and the what, right? That's how you kind of dimensionize like the promotion curve for many folks here. The how you do things fits within that culture and exactly how you use that model. I wonder if AI could pick up on that cultural nuance. Like you'd have to train, it would have to be understanding the cultural nuances to get that. I like that you said the cute puppy though for the
So lovable.
that's yeah. But yeah, for the what did you call the one that has the they I call them like what did I call them? They leave like a trail of like just confusion. Like they get the thing done,
Yeah.
but then people are like, "What did we
Yeah.
just agree to?" Like what?
I call them productive jerks. They often are in
Productive
sales
jerk.
or operations
Yeah.
because their results are often more quantifiable than some of our other
Hmm.
roles. But they
Yeah.
just, they do, they leave a wake of frustration, irritation. Like they maybe are great in sales, they're often great with customers, but internally they're just really difficult to work with and they are not respectful of the other people's input to the process. And, but gosh, they bring in the numbers and
They sure do.
sometimes their clients are harder to serve or they haven't created clarity with clients about what the process or the product really looks like. Um, and in operations, they tend to be bullies. They tend to be
Yeah.
really difficult, demanding, and not in a productive way.
Yeah. It would be, I wonder how AI could pick up on that. I guess it could because then it would be like contextual understanding of that, or you could do a feedback loop. I mean, that's how you actually do kind of suss out these uh, non-productive jerks. I can't remember what you so,
Productive jerks. Yeah.
yeah, productive jerks. That's how we suss them out, right? Like the feedback. We believe in feedback and 360 feedback. So I guess that's how it would get sussed out.
Yeah.
But I would assume if you're interfacing with something, it's going to put it more prevalent in front of your face. Like we get it. And then our judgment comes in and we're like, but we just secured that $1 million deal. We'll give them another pass. But what we don't understand is how that's impacting the people around them, right? Culture, it is why people go to companies and managers, all of the things. That's why people stay, is
Yeah.
because who they work for and the environment they work in. And people will leave because there's that productive jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best people, usually it's the
Yeah,
best one.
because
Most
they don't have
employable,
low
especially
tolerance.
as the market gets tighter
Yep.
and there are more candidates on the market. Those best people get recruited away and they're like, turns out I don't have to put up with this. I can go somewhere where it's not so hard to
Yeah,
just do my job because of that
exactly.
guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, like when we started down this path, I was having these end of the line visions where it's like you have a manager that's has a seat in the org chart, and the
Mhm.
manager knows what the team is expected to accomplish by when, under what set of core values, and they are continually coaching and monitoring performance and monitoring projects and progress and doing one-on-ones weekly and all these best practice things that so often get, like I had a one-on-one with my admin today and it got bumped because we needed something from another team member on a project. And I'm like, okay, now I've got to make sure that gets back on my calendar because we got to have the one-on-one. But if it was asynchronous and she had that feedback, I don't know. I
Mhm.
think there's some real good that could come out of it. And maybe
Yeah.
it's like a 2-to-1 ratio. Maybe there's still a human,
Yeah.
but gosh, that burden is just getting heavier. I mean, I work with a lot of education organizations. The
Yeah.
span of control in education is insane. We'll
Mm.
have a principal or a vice principal managing 80 teachers.
Oh,
How are you supposed to manage someone's performance and even really know what's going on with them?
yeah.
They're in their own classroom all day. So
Hmm.
unless you show up and sit and listen, you don't see a lot, or you see them in the collaborative teacher sessions. We have like most of my clients have like a Wednesday afternoon teacher collaboration, and you see them there, but to support them and manage their performance closely is a pipe dream at that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Could there be academic coaches on video? And I don't know. This gets into a whole lot of privacy
I
stuff.
mean, then I was like, what do you have a bot in the room that hears how they're presenting because like that's the other piece. Like, just think about a new teacher in that environment. My whole family's education, so it's kind of wild
Okay.
that you brought this up.
Yeah.
So my parents were educators and my brother. Um, like how, because new teachers, you don't know, like you're teaching
Like being a
sixth
new
grade.
parent.
Yeah.
No idea what this
Yeah.
is
And
going to.
there's these kids will throw wild things at you. And you're like, what do I do? I've never had that. And just think they're, coming out of college with a credential. What are you, early 20s? Like life is new. You're interfacing. You've got these parents. You may have multiple levels of learning within that class. Like, how would you give somebody some, hey, that was really great that you had that conversation without seeing it? So how would you observe all of that, your classes with 80 teachers? That's crazy.
I
But
almost
then
wonder
where
if
would
you could
AI
like,
fit?
yeah, I
Ooh,
have a girlfriend who just finished her teaching credential.
yeah,
She changed careers. And one of the things she had to do to get her credential was video several of her lessons and submit
yeah.
those. It was all like the parents gave permission, and mostly it was videoing from behind the kids' heads. So it was focused
Okay.
on the teacher and
Yeah,
the back of the kids' heads. It wasn't identifying them. And then they were giving her feedback. But I'm thinking about like a specialized bot who's in the classroom with you, who knows that you have junior high kids who are all hopped up on hormones, who
yeah,
you're facing behavioral challenges and academic, and like giving feedback on here's what the students really seem to gravitate towards. They got excited about that conversation.
yeah,
You handled these questions really well, whatever it was, or you could give them feedback on classroom management. Or I think about if we go back to the business world, I think it's already starting to happen where sales managers are there. Like a lot of the salespeople have, like I've got my Fathom note taker on right now,
yeah.
have access to the Fathom note taker. The note taker can evaluate, like if we have a selling system,
Hmm.
how the rapport is going with clients, if they're good at asking questions, drawing out needs, or if they're really just talking at the client, those are already here. Maybe it starts to look like that with project managers are the next ones because they have lots of client interface. And I
Yeah.
think there are places that we could just help people level up and get more tangible data rather than these. One of my big challenges is so often the subjective nature. It's like, if I don't really like your style, if it's different than mine, does that make you ineffective? Maybe, but also maybe not. It
Right.
just doesn't resonate with me. But what if it's
Yeah.
resonating with their clients? What if it's getting the job done and I don't have a lot of visibility?
Yeah. I don't know how education would adopt. That sound, I mean, you're right. In more of the business sector, we are having tooling. It's more common for a note taker to be on and assessing. But in schools, it's like you're dealing with a whole different situation because of the children, you know?
Yeah.
It would have to be maybe more of a school that's gets all the like when you register, you sign. I don't know. I
I
don't
know.
work in education. I'm not trying to say I know how, but it would be very interesting. How, how does that individual like principal or even vice principal? Because like I think it would be complicated. I mean, it's really complicated. I mean, it's complicated now in the business sector.
Everything's complicated. It's
Yeah.
like it's always a cost benefit.
Yeah.
I like having my own note taker. One of the values I keep seeing is I'll go back to a meeting with a client and say, okay, how do we talk about that structure or who needed to be in that next meeting? And I'll
Yeah.
query after the meeting. And it's worth its weight in gold because A, my handwriting's terrible. So my handwritten notes are questionable. B, I try so hard to be fully present in the meeting that if I am stopping to take notes, I'm
Yeah.
missing something. Um, and so I've gotten a lot of personal value, and near zero people in the meetings I'm in have any concerns about me and my note taker.
Yeah.
Just keep thinking about, God, there's this miss in the economy where people don't want this
Hmm.
job. And yet it plays a huge function. And a lot of the function it plays about like gaining confidence and competence and autonomy for employees is really beneficial for the person being coached. I don't know. There's going to be some progressive people who figure this
Yeah.
out. I don't know that I'm going to be one of them, but God, I'm excited for the ride because I think it's coming and
Yeah.
it doesn't get tired. It doesn't get burnt out like most of these
Mhm.
managers do. It's a really good note taker and analyzer and it's surprisingly good with interpersonal interactions.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it does like influx and voice and all of that, because I think that's where technology has advanced over this quite a few years too. Like you could sense, I don't know, I don't have the same note taker that you do, but I wonder if it senses like them pulling back or interaction, and then you can interface. I love that you can interface with it after, because like there's actually 9 times out of 10, I'm in a meeting and people are walking away with different understandings of what happened in that meeting. And
Yes.
that is highly problematic.
Yes, that is
So,
in all the like team development I do when we look at people's different profile, whichever assessment we end up using,
mhm.
because I'm a little agnostic. It's their lenses on the world. They literally see and hear different things based on the superhighways in the brain, their
Yep.
strengths. Like my husband and I joke, I'm always listening for the tasks in a meeting. We work on a lot of nonprofits together, and he's always listening for the strategy. We have a different filter on what our ears are even listening for.
Yeah.
And so, like, to be able to go back to it and say, okay, what were the tasks that I love the like checklist that comes out because my admin
Mhm.
looks at it and she's like, oh, I did two of those for you already. I'm like, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, talk about you've got people problems. Like that's in HR, like conversations I'm having with leaders, or I'm disclosing something going on with one of my peers. I'm like, did you have the thing recording the meeting? And they're like, no, I didn't. Okay, great. Because there's stuff like we still don't trust it, even though like I'm calling my peer in talent planning to be like, hey, I want to tell you about this org design I'm working on. I want to get feedback. And then I had to message, oh my God, I got the summary after, delete it. And so even when we're in it, we're still not feeling safe, even though it's our own instance, our own interaction. It's the two
Yeah.
of us that got the same dialogue. It's like, what if it leaks? You know, we're
Yeah.
still not secure enough with that, you know?
Yeah. There's there's so much nuance to it, but there's
I know.
nuance to everything in life. And I think because we're all so quirky, having something that's pretty neutral and objective to ask, how could I have handled that better? Or um, to help us hold others accountable is there's value there.
Yeah.
And I just really worry about the resource constraints. So many of my clients have gone from having managers to these player coaches who they're burdening with so much work that the coaching doesn't happen. And then their employees don't get up to speed quickly enough.
Right.
So then they're frustrated. The employee's frustrated, and the manager and the department, everybody's frustrated. And guess what our clients expect us to be? Who hire us, they expect us to be experts.
Yeah.
And so finding stop gaps for that, and maybe they're technical leads rather than interpersonal. I don't know. I'm excited to see what comes. So I think we're going to have to keep our finger on the
Yeah.
pulse of, maybe we'll do
Yeah.
another one of these in the year and say, okay, here's what we've
Okay,
seen
here are all the
develop in the
new, yeah.
meantime. Yeah.
Here's the new technologies that came out. And I think it's a provocative conversation, right? Even in this conversation, education, then thinking about my HR use case, right? Or my internal people use case. Like it, it's many companies are moving in a direction that you'll see AI in an org chart. I recently saw an org design, one of my clients came to me and it's like, Amy, I know I'm not going to get resourcing. Here's how I would deploy agents to support in some of the work. And I was like, I love this. I love this org design. But like, it's a different skill set altogether to manage agents. Like, if your whole entire team was agents, you have to have a new skill. And we're not enable. I mean, some companies are, but you have to enable that change curve, and it's a new skill and new role essentially. Like role of a manager changes if you're managing those, and you have to have some type of coding or some type of way to interface with a low code bot so that you can tell it to do the thing that you want it to do.
And the
So,
quality control aspect of it is
yeah,
huge.
yep, the
And
safeguards.
one of the early ones I saw a couple of years ago was an HR chatbot about like my benefits, my compensation,
Yeah,
how does all this work? And the need to bother a human, if it's all documented, is minimal. But also, no one wants to actually read all that documentation because we're all so lazy now. Because why would I read it all if I can query it and get an answer?
yeah.
And it's like my mom is still old school, and in their business, she'll go back through vendor invoices to find information.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
and sometimes we'll compile that. And I'm like, I'm actually just going to call the vendor. They can run a report for me. It's a whole lot more efficient.
Yeah.
And so it's just changing a mindset.
Yeah.
And okay, so give me two or three tips in
Okay.
terms of easy places that have to do with solving people problems, maybe
Yeah.
that we can use AI. What have you
Yeah.
seen that you think is safe and a good starting place?
Yeah. Well, you were just talking about it. I mean, this is what I'm talking about internally with our head of um, people strategy, which is where can we interface and offload work of somebody finding the answer, which is building an efficiency bot that can analyze all your intranet, all your people practices, all your policies, all of that. Train a bot and then deploy it and have people ask the bot questions before it escalates. So it's kind of replacing your first line tier one service support for employee base for both people and IT, I would say. That's my biggest tip. And that's where many companies are going. Another tip, I would say I am going to index towards that coach. Deploying some type of coach where you're interfacing with whether you're an individual contributor or even a manager getting some of these coaches that you can have that one-to-one interaction just to kind of improve your communication and your interpersonal skills. I would say that's a second good tip for people interfacing with AI. And then the other piece is, even if you have raw data, get one of the GPTs that is approved by your company to help you analyze data. Data is how we make decision. So you spend less time. I just had a conversation with one of my partners, one of my clients over the weekend, analyzing all of the comments within the employee survey. And it was like, of course is going to read all of the all the comments, but it was a way to elevate, like looking at some of the patterns and theming around it, that he could have some early perspective of like, oh, okay, that's an area, let me dig in. And then he could go into that section of the survey to find where that particular pattern is showing up. So it's analyzing large sets of data.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And
Yeah.
I want to go back one to, you mentioned the virtual coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I will reiterate again, especially if we can give them context around who they're
Right.
dealing with. Like, how long has this person been with us? What's their productivity level? What's their autonomy level? And if you have any behavioral data on the way they operate, the way their superhighways in their brain run, it can give us a lot better feedback on supporting, communicating
Right.
with, holding accountable those people. And if you can give it on yourself, here's how I operate.
Right.
So, because if we can find words that come most naturally to us, it doesn't feel awkward or disingenuous, because that's the
Mm-hmm.
last thing we want to come off as leaders.
Right.
We want to find ways to connect that are more efficient, that really land with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just going to improve everyone's communication style, right? Didn't you, when we were preparing for presentations, didn't you practice in the mirror? I did. I
100%.
mean,
I think one of my favorite AI tools is the presentation coach in PowerPoint.
yeah,
I pull up a presentation, I start presenting. It's giving me real-time feedback on the screen about slow your roll, don't you reuse words, don't read from the slides. And it is productive, useful feedback. That's a great place to play, to start to trust that, oh, this isn't baloney. This is really productive and it's making me better. And so I
right.
think whether you're at the end of the spectrum where you're not quite trusting AI yet, those are good, safe places because they don't involve anyone else or
Mm-mm.
anything proprietary usually, all the way to, okay, we're going to start building some resources for our team, even if they're nonprofits. Like, I think I probably should build one for our swim team that's like, what are our policies?
Oh,
What should we
yeah.
expect as a parent? In all my spare time.
Well, it
But
can also write, like, that's the thing. Like, if you have, like, you can prompt it to write, like, here's our published website, write the news bulletin on this information, or we need to get out a memorandum about this, send this out to all the parents. Just low level kind of impact where it's just summarizing and doing something for you. I call that a efficiency or productivity bot, if you will. And that's also like, if it could just answer all of my texts to my best friends that are having, like, sometimes I look at my phone and there's 48 texts and I'm like, I'm not reading all 48 texts.
I actually, let's see what my number is right now. 20 is very low for me. I think I cleared
Okay.
it out because what happens is I get a text and it says thanks. I don't open a text that says thanks. I leave it unread because I read it. It was a one word. And so then my friends will look at my phone and be like, really? We'll have 214 unread texts? I'm like, not yes and no.
Right? So it's like summarize I mean, it's more of group chats, really. It's what I'm saying. Like in the personal life, that would be amazing, but it would have to go across to all platforms, if you will. But I do think that in work life, I get a lot of questions that come through like a Slack first environment, and if I could have a bot that's analyzing some of the information and then prioritizing it, because like I don't know which one's prioritized. So like, hey, you could put some type of categorization of like, this is what I need to prioritize. Here's my priority dimensions.
List.
And it would
Yeah.
be like, here's all your Slacks that you need to
Yeah. You
respond
have
to it.
7 minutes between the next two
Yeah.
meetings. respond to these three.
Exactly. And here's a draft for you based
Yeah.
on, your conversations that you had with this person. That would be amazing. It's like a personal assistant bot, if you will, but it has to go across all mediums, across all technologies. I don't know that we're there
Come with
yet.
me. My little twin can come with
Yeah,
me. My
exactly.
digital twin. But I think
Exactly.
so, you said the word earlier, and it's all about augmentation. So if we
Yeah.
take this whole big concept of AI in the org chart, this is about augmenting human resources, giving extra time and explanation and clarity so that people know how to win at work.
Right.
And whether that's, a bot who explains our benefits or tells us who to contact for this. I have one client that's about 1,500 people in the financial services space. And in their employee survey that came back 2 months ago, one of the big questions was like, we don't know who to go to for X. And they've
Yeah.
actually already been working on a directory of what everybody does and how to map that. And I'm like, oh, good news, you get credit where credit's due because they're already asking for something you're already building. And so you're welcome. We heard you. We heard you long before the survey, but it's still a need, and we're working on delivering this. So that's a really nice way to pair that
Yeah.
feedback. But that augmentation, I think, is what we're all looking for.
Exactly. And it's, obviously within team protocols and legal and all the things, because we have a AI committee that should be looking at. Many companies are. Like, this isn't a new construct of a committee that helps with how are you leveraging AI and where are you using it to augment the work.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to actually have AI. Well, I mean, there are HRIS companies talking about the first ever virtual employee in an org chart. And there are companies moving in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't have to be at a manager level in the org chart. They can
Correct.
certainly be other places. So,
Right.
well, thank you for your insights and dreaming with me. This is kind of just sandbox time, I think. I think we could have
Yeah.
spent a long time on this and done a lot more pre-research, but I think it's just a good topic for us to be thinking about and thinking about how it might apply to our own industries and teams and products and services that we offer to benefit our employees, our customers, our profitability. So tell us, Amy, how you would like people to contact you if they want to
Sure.
learn more about you personally, about Fastly. How would you like them to contact
Yeah.
you?
I love that. Thanks. So anyone can contact me on LinkedIn. It's Amy Perenon, and my last name is spelled Perenon. So I have a pretty public profile. You can also email me, and it's my first name and last name at yahoo.com. Happy to have a chat. Happy to be on anyone else's podcast, and happy to talk about all things business related, people related, and any other things. I love sports, so maybe we could talk sports.
Nice. Way to put yourself out there. Well, if you want to contact me, learn more about any behavioral assessments or employee engagement, right? People rate seats. My company is Activate Human Capital Group, and I'm also pretty available on LinkedIn. My middle name is Yerxa, Yerxa. So Melissa Yerxa Ortiz is probably the easiest way to find me on LinkedIn because that's a very uncommon name. Amy, thank you for doing this with me. I look forward to having you back on You've Got People Problems someday.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to the next conversation. Thanks a lot, Melissa.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of You've Got People Problems. If you got something out of the conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the other leaders in your network, because let's face it, we all have people problems. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast app. But either way, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.